SimCoder here, and today we're going to dive into GeoFire and actually fetch the drivers that are available to our customer request, but with some specific things. We are only interested in the closest riders to us, and in more advanced terms, the driver that's closer to us, because that's the most efficient driver that can get to us and take us to the place that we need to go. So, first of all, let's go into our Firebase project. And in here, I got some things ready. So I have a customer request, and we learned how to do this in the previous lesson. So if you didn't see it, please go back and watch it. Otherwise, you won't understand it really well. So we'll have a customer request and the drivers available. Now imagine that we have multiple drivers available. Then it becomes harder to figure out which one is closer to us, because in this example that I have here, we only have one. So obviously this is the one that it's going to be picked out for this customer request. If we have, let's say, 5 of them, then we'll use GeoFire query and search function in order to find the one that's closer to us. And we'll do that by going by radius. And you'll understand it a bit, but imagine you have a radius around this customer request that's 1 kilometer, then 2 kilometers, then 3 kilometers, okay? And we'll try to find, to see if there's any driver in the 1 kilometer area. And if there is, then it stops there and the driver stops being available because he's working for the customer. If in the 1 kilometer radius there isn't any driver, then we move on to the 2 kilometers radius and so on. So the logic is simple, but you need to make some things that aren't meant to work this way, but you have to force it to do this because it is the only way. So yeah, let's go into our Firebase project in the Android Studio. Here we are. And now the way you're going to do this is call a function, and let's say is get closest driver, create function. Let's say I'm separating this because it is somewhat large a function, so it is better to keep it off separated. And we'll need to do a recursive, so we'll be calling this function inside this function. If you don't know what that is, you'll understand it in a second. So now we are going to call the database reference. Let's say driver location, and this reference, just do that. This reference will point to drivers available, okay? So say Firebase database dot get instance dot get reference dot child drivers available. Okay. Now let's create an instance for GeoFire. GeoFire equals new GeoFire with the driver location reference. So there we are. And now we are going to move on to something new. And this is a GeoFire query. So called GeoQuery, not GeoFire, GeoQuery. GeoQuery, let's make it capital Q. equals to GeoFire dot query at location new geolocation, and this is, as you remember, the radius from that I explained in here. So we are going to create radiuses around the customer request, and to do that we use this query at location, and in this function we call the geolocation, and in here is the center of those radiuses. So it is this latitude and longitude of the custom request. So now we simply pass that in, and we can do that by using the pickup location that we created right here in the previous lesson. So say that dot latitude pickup location dot longitude. Okay, and now we say radius. This is the radius of that circumference. And let's create, let's call the variable. It is going to be of the type int. Let me just see if it is miles. Okay, it doesn't say here. I'm not sure if this is miles or kilometers, but for our project, because we're only trying to explain the logic, it isn't relevant. But if you prefer one of the two, you simply can convert to whatever you want. Okay? So now you're going to create a query, and we say that do that by calling the GeoQuery event listener. Then new GeoQuery event listener, and in here you have a bunch of things. Again, as with any Firebase listeners, this isn't Firebase, this is GeoFire. It is different, but it revolves around Firebase. So the principles are basically the same, with some nuances. So anytime a driver is found within the radius, this onKey entered is called, and we get the key, which is the ID of the driver, and the location, which is in here with longitude and latitude with zeros and ones. Okay, and we know that the query has finished. So every driver that is within the radius has been found when the onGeoQuery ready is called upon. The rest we don't really need. We don't need these two and these two and this one. We won't be diving into errors. We are going to assume that everything is going to work out just fine. So now we are going to create a couple variables that are going to help us to figure out if a driver has been found, and if so, the ID of the driver. So say boolean driver found equals to false, and private string driver found ID. Okay. And now, in here, well, first of all, let's go into onGeoQuery ready. So, let's go into onKey entered. So, if a driver has been found, we can say that driver found equals true. Okay. If not, then we go in here and say not driver found. So, if this is false, if the driver found is false, which means that this onKey entered was not called, then we say that the radius grows by 1, and we move on from the first radius, which is 1 kilometer. Imagine, let's assume it is kilometers. So 1 kilometer, it moves on to the second kilometer radius, and it calls itself. So basically, if no drivers are found, it gets here, so drivers not found, the radius goes up by 1, and this function starts over again. Now, in order to avoid some mistakes, we are going to clear up this listener after this function is called. So we just come in here and say geoQuery.remove all listeners. This is just a prevention measure, because when a driver moves this function, this listener can be called upon again and so on. So remove all listeners just to be sure. And now we are going to actually fix the onKey entered function, because yes, we know that the driver has been found, but we don't do anything with it at the moment, so we need to do that. And let's again say if driver found, not found, is not found, then if driver is not found, then driver found equals to true, and driver found ID equals to key. And we have to have this if not driver found, because if you have multiple drivers in that 1 kilometer, then it will continuously go in here and change the driver ID. We'll say it isn't the most exact, because 1 kilometer is still a big difference, but let's assume that the first driver that this query finds in that 1 kilometer, that's the one that's going to pick up our customer. So after the first one has been found, even if there are more drivers in that location, this key doesn't change. It's the first one that we are going to choose. And because that's when that first one is found, the driver found equals to true. So when the query finishes, finding every single driver, this function this if won't be triggered. Let's just try and debug this. Let's put the debugs here and here and here. Let's put just inside the ifs, or maybe not. Okay, like this. Let's launch the application and see if everything checks out. So it finished loading. Let's go into, yeah, that's everything. Let's go into I'm a customer. Say call Uber. There it is. Now it is working. Okay, so remember I hard-coded this driver available. And because these move randomly, it may take a while to actually find a driver, so let's try and do that. So for now, it didn't find anyone. Let's continue. And it is incrementing to the radius. The radius is going up, as you can see. And eventually, this function will be triggered. Okay, let's just remove this and wait till that is found. Okay, so there appears to be an error because it is already at 2595, and I know for a fact that this driver is closer. So let's go in and check. Oh, in here it is drivers, not drivers. So okay, that must be it. Let's launch it again. Okay, let's go into I'm a customer. Okay, let's call Uber. Get a new driver. Let's do that again. Okay, and it found a driver. After changing the radiuses a bunch of times, it finally found it. And now this will be called again, but it will skip, so it won't call it again per se. So now that's false, so that finishes it, and the driver has been found, and it has this key, this ID. So yeah, that is all for now. Thank you all very much for watching. Please do like, subscribe. That helps me tremendously. You don't know how much. And yeah, if you have any questions, please leave them down below in the comment section. Yeah, ciao.